I'm Todd Schrupp for this week's edition of Beyond 140. It's post-Breeders' Cup, and many of you have questions or comments about what took place over the 2 days of championship racing, particularly the controversial Breeders' Cup Classic. Remember, the idea Beyond 140, when 140 characters on Twitter are not enough, I get how much ever time I want to answer your questions that you've sent me on Twitter. Remember, follow me at Todd TVG if you want to participate in Beyond 140. Our first question comes from Joe DeLuca, who says, who do you think would have won the Breeders' Cup Classic with a clean break for all? This ties into the fact that what happened out of the starting gate with Byron wasn't just the fact that he slammed into Shared Belief. It's what happened after that, the chain reaction that also got Moreno caught up in it, because had Moreno broken cleanly, wouldn't he have been a challenge for Barron on the lead? So if everyone gets a clean break, who wins? Well, I want to go back to what steward Scott Chaney said the morning after and explaining the steward's decision not to disqualify Barron for that bumping and the chain reaction, because he was asked that question. And I must say, Scott Chaney is one of the best stewards in the country. He's also one of the most articulate for explaining why they come to the decisions they do. He's also somebody, if you had to put everything on the line and it was a debate, you'd want him debating for you. He makes you feel better about their decisions, but then you kind of go back and go, well, wait a second. One of his points that he made is that if you're going to then surmise because Moreno was bumped, then Barron wouldn't have won the race because he was on the lead, then that forces the stewards to be handicapping, and that's something that they shouldn't do. However, aren't stewards handicapping when they say it didn't cost a horse a better finish? So, look, there's so much ambiguity in the rule itself when it comes to what stewards have to do in situations like that. I don't think we can project who would have won with a clean break. There were three horses separated by about a quarter of a length in that race. The bottom line is this. It was a controversial finish. It could have gone either way. And yes, the fact that Moreno couldn't challenge Barron early because of the situation at the start clearly affected the outcome of the race. But racing overall has to do something about its rules and make it not such a gray area, take some of the subjectivity out, and maybe consider not just having stewards at a racetrack decide the outcome of a race, maybe have a regional replay center where stewards control the West Coast, the Midwest, and maybe the East, and then that way you get some consistency in the calls. But it's a Breeders' Cup Classic we'll never forget for the exciting finish and the controversial finish at that. Okay, let's move on. This comes from @Cardinal. Do you think it's good for the game for wealthy owners to complain when they lose? Come on, be thankful you're in the game. This is obviously a reference to the connections of Shared Belief and Jim Rome and his feelings about what took place in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Look, I don't think wealth or status has anything to do with your right to complain. You put up your money as a $2 bettor or a $2 million bettor. You put up your money as a small-time owner or a big-time owner. You have a right to weigh in. I actually think that the connections of Shared Belief handled themselves quite well. In fact, Jerry Hollendorfer immediately not saying anything or wanting to comment on the steward's decision. Jim Rome covering it on his radio show and considering what took place in the awesome, again, the prep race prior to the Breeders' Cup Classic with similar connections having a controversial moment as the connections of Barron. I would have to say that the ownership group of Shared Belief handled themselves with quite aplomb. But no, whether or not you're rich or poor doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you can weigh in on something. This one diverts a little bit, and this comes in from Joe44, who says, when was the last time you threw out handicapping and just went with a horse because of the name? Who was worse? Did it win? I think you're referencing, is my handicapping as bad as picking names? I don't know what it is. Names never work for me. I know people at the racetrack all the time will play a name or an inspiration. It works for them. It doesn't work for me. Let me give you two of the best examples. I've had the privilege of having some connections out of the blue, name horses reference to me. Todd T on TV, and then Todd T. Schruppellini. Neither one of those horses were great, and I didn't play either one of those horses, or did I win with those horses. So if you can't get horses like that home as far as names, then it's probably not going to work. Okay, back to the scientific part of handicapping, and this comes in from Alex Chapman, who's been a longtime follower. Would like to know, What did you like about Carri and Tha in the Breeders' Cup Mile? Rough trip, Lasix for the first time. There was a lot to look at with Carri and Tha. First of all, my feeling going into the mile this year is with no Wise Dan, why in the world would you want to play the favorite? We'd had a series of years where the favorite had dominated, so why are you going to go for Toronado now? But my thinking on Carri and Tha was this. Yes, the rough trip last time out absolutely eliminated this horse's chances in that race. He was getting Lasix for the first time out of there. And then here was something that was missed by a lot of people. Carri and Tha had a win over Charm Spirit. If you look at Toronado's last race before coming into the Breeders' Cup Mile, he lost to Charm Spirit. So here you had a horse who had a legitimate excuse, already proved that he could run with the same horse as the favorite was running with, and he was 30-1. Did that save my Breeders' Cup? No, because I was about 0 for 10 prior to that. But Alex Chapman, that was my reasoning on Carri and Tha. Hopefully you took advantage. Hopefully you'll take advantage of the next edition of Beyond 140. Again, questions or comments, be it about horse racing or any topic, just find me on Twitter at Todd TVG. And when you send in your question or comment, be sure to use the hashtag Beyond 140.